Thanks for joining us for the Executive Series today. I'm talking to Ken Brinsden, who is the CEO and Managing Director of Pilbara Minerals. Ken, it's good to talk to you again.
Tom, nice to be with you again.
Now, it's such a busy time for Pilbara at the moment. And obviously, the main focus is the progress of Stage 1 at Pilbara. How's it all going over there?
Oh, it's a really exciting time for the company, Tom. We've got so much activity going on at site and hurtling towards the commissioning of Stage 1. The construction's gone really well. During the course of this year, we've made incredible progress, and actually right now we're just on the cusp of the commencement of the major commissioning activity. Crusher in the next week or two, and then progressively the balance of the plant during May and June. And our objective, absolutely still the case, to have the first concentrate on the ground by the end of June.
And that's it really comes down to so many of the small things working when it comes to working to these tight deadlines, and that's all been going well.
Yeah, we've been really pleased with our partners in the project and their ability to get on with the job. That's been one of the really pleasing aspects of the project's development. Equally, our team at Pilbara, really capable people, fantastic technical expertise, and that's also been a really important value add. Tom, I forgot to mention, of course, though, you could argue we're already in production because the DSO program has commenced. We've been shipping ore off site since the second half of April, and sales are now underway. So, yeah, also going well in that regard.
You had one of the founders of the business step down. Do you want to talk to that point?
Yeah. Well, it's a credit to John Young, Neil Biddle, the work that went on in the formation and the inception of Pilbara Minerals, their vision to be spending money when it wasn't sexy to be spending money on lithium, really positioned Pilbara for the opportunity that's presented to shareholders today, near-term concentrate production and cash flow. That only happens because of their foresight. Very, very lucky to have had them involved. Of course, things change over time, and John Young has some fantastic new initiatives to work on. They're consuming a lot of his time, so he asked if he could step down from the Pilbara Minerals board, and of course we welcome that, and very thankful for his involvement in the company. His technical inputs are, or have been, incredibly important to the rapid evolution of Pilbara Minerals.
Well, on a similar note, a big focus for the business is Stage 2, that expansion. Now, you're going to make a final investment decision on this later on in the year.
Yeah.
What's your thinking around Stage 2 at the moment?
Yeah, well, it just really screams of opportunity because we have such a massive endowment of spodumene minerals and tantalum at Pilbara. That scale and the demand that we see coming from the market and our really first-rate customer base indicates that we should continue to keep expanding. So that's very much at the front of our minds. We've already started to make some pre-commitments to the Stage 2 project, both in the delivery of Stage 1, the layout, some of the engineering and actually some of the subcomponents in the plant that are already rated for the expanded capacity. So it's always been there at the front of our minds, and yes, it is our intention that we'll get to the final investment decision. We'd hope approximately July, maybe into August. Coincident with the balance of the detailed funding docs that relate to the customer piece that supports Stage 2. So, on track and actually looking forward to the scale that can be generated at Pilbara. It's just an amazing project.
Indeed, and another important aspect of the business is the agreements that you have in place, and having partners like Korea's POSCO is one of the elements that separates you from many other producers. Tell us why this is important, and particularly when the downstream aspect of things is considered.
Yep, so true. So in the hard rock lithium world, what I would argue, one of the key determinants to success is your capacity to partner with people that are already creating battery grade products and already participants in the battery industry. And that's important because you want your product to ultimately make its way into batteries as opposed to floating through the older subsets of the lithium raw material supply base. So having the right partners is key. I feel like the company's done a great job building out its customer base. We have diversity by customer, and now in the relationship with POSCO we have diversity by location, being able to sell about 30% of our product into South Korea. Also, another important strategic objective, establishing those positions for investment and participation in the downstream chemical facility. And we really value that relationship with POSCO. They have some fantastic technology to deploy, creates ultra high grade product, very, very cost competitive product in the hydroxide market, which we believe is also the future for the battery industry. That's driven by the next generation of higher nickel cathodes that support improved lithium-ion battery technology and lower cost. So, yeah, that one is an important piece of the puzzle for Pilbara Minerals' future growth, and very much looking forward to demonstrating how that works over the balance of 2018.
Yep. What are the key things that are going to consolidate that relationship with POSCO when you look out over the course of the next couple of years?
Yep, so they're completing their feasibility studies for the larger scale plant. So they already have a commercial plant that relates to the technology that's being deployed by POSCO. It's very clever, the purification techniques that they use. So the feasibility studies will be finished by the end of the year. Our expectation is that our detailed joint venture documents will be finished at or about the same time, roughly November this year, in which case the company will then make this next step and participate in the construction of the project during 2019. POSCO's expectation is that they'll be commissioning from late 2019, early 2020 in that larger facility.
Right.
And we'd expect that Pilbara will take a 30% position in that project. So, yeah, really good for shareholders.
Indeed. Let's talk about another important issue, because there's a lot being said about the demand-supply dynamics in relation to lithium. Do you equate this to the early stages of when iron ore production was ramping up, around the pre-GFC, where people were sceptical that prices could be sustained in that ramp-up period?
Yeah, it is. It's a useful analogy because it's difficult for the Western world to anticipate the speed with which China moves. And yeah, I think that is a good analogy because there was never really a period of time during the 2000s where the Western world understood exactly how much steelmaking capacity China would make. And I see the lithium-ion supply chain in much the same light. They are moving incredibly quickly. There is masses of investment going on there that's very difficult for the Western world to get visibility to. Now, we're in a bit of a privileged position because we have the product that the customers want, in which case they're inclined to share more information with us about what they're up to, and by our measure, we would say they're moving much faster than people are currently giving them credit for. So that's good from a demand perspective. On the supply side, it's a mixed bag. I think people are probably overstating the brine supply response. There's at least half a chance they might be understating the hard rock supply response.
Right.
And a lot of that will come from Western Australia, of course. But the net effect of all that is still a market that is tight because of primarily how fast China, and actually we would argue also South Korea, are now moving.
Ken, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure, Tom. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us for the Executive Series.